Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dion, and today we're on my brand new balcony! I am still getting my filming room all set up. It's actually 6 in the morning right now. My mom is sleeping in my filming room. So that's why we're outside, but hopefully in the next couple weeks we will have a full-fledged filming room. I want you guys to see my outfit. Wait. Got my leather vest on and my little fringe jacket, and today we are going to talk about niche aesthetics that are great if you are gender fluid, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming, or you just like to switch back and forth. Fashion in general is so heavily catered towards women, right? Like, it's really, men's fashion is so boring for the most part, and I feel like in the past maybe 150 years, we've really just like let men's fashion drop off a cliff in a way. Suits, polos, men's fashions remain the same, and there's just so much less color, so many less options in men's fashion compared to women's fashion. And with that, niche fashion aesthetics tend to be made by teenage girls for teenage girls. But if you're new to this channel, you may not know, I consider niche fashion aesthetics to be almost like dress-up prompts. Like, they're prompts so you can go in your closet and play dress-up as a rock star girlfriend, as coquette, as whatever. And I think everyone should be able to play dress-up and have fun. So that's why I wanted to make this video, because I feel like my videos do heavily cater towards women or femme-presenting people. And I try to be as inclusive as possible, but this is specifically like, these are aesthetics that I feel if you're gender non-conforming, gender non-binary, these are good aesthetics to try out. Obviously, as I say always, clothing doesn't have any gender, and anybody can wear anything, right? Clothing doesn't have genitals, so clothing doesn't have a gender or a sex. So everyone can wear whatever they want. The factors that I try to consider of what would be good for gender non-conforming, gender non-binary people. I am not gender non-conforming or non-binary, but I have a lot of friends who are, so I took into consideration what they like to wear, what makes them feel comfortable, what factors go into how they dress and why they dress the way they do, and use that into consideration. So I want to make sure these aesthetics were binder friendly, were friendly for people who want to cover up more or want to be more exposed, so there's a nice modesty range. So that's my point of view. Again, I want to really stress, like, I believe that anybody can wear anything, and you know, I don't think that people should be attacked for wearing dresses or skirts or suits or whatever that doesn't align with their gender. But for people who like to really just toe the line in the middle of gender neutrality and gender fluidity, and don't want to dress too femme or too mass, that want to just have that sort of middle flow, these are aesthetics that I think really fit that. So if you like niche fashion aesthetics and fashion commentary in general, definitely make sure to subscribe to my channel because I post videos every Thursday. And with that, let's get into it. So the first one, we're gonna start way back and then move to more contemporary. The first fashion aesthetic that I think is great for gender non-conforming, gender non-binary folks is the 70s hippie aesthetic, late 60s, early 70s hippie aesthetic. I'm talking long hair, tight flared pants, peasant tops. We really saw a meshing of femme and mask fashion. Both women and men were pushing past normal gender roles during this time, so women were wearing more and more pants and showing more and more skin. Men were wearing tighter and tighter clothing. The rise of secondhand clothing, communal living in the free love era created a very fun and flamboyant style for all. Some tenets of the 70s hippie aesthetic are bell bottoms, pirate tops, fringe, heeled boots, jumpsuits, tie-dye, neckerchiefs, fur accents, patchwork details, tight tops that were sometimes cropped, headbands, bright colors and patterns. I just think, like, when you see hippie, men and women hippie uniform, really there's a lot of crossover, and men were wearing more and more crop tops and tighter clothes, women were wearing looser clothes, and I feel like there was just a little bit more crossover in the gendered clothing. So I think kind of that 70s hippie vibe, this is when we were starting to encourage male rock stars to be a little bit more fruity, a little bit more flamboyant in a good way. And so if you want to toe that line, maybe you have some flared pants or something, I think the 70s hippie is a good way to kind of be in that middle of gender non-conforming and all of that. Plus, it's a very fun aesthetic, easy to thrift, that kind of jazz. Similar, but this is for the less colorful, maybe a little bit more edgy. May I present the 80s rock star? This is basically Rockstar Girlfriend, which I've done a whole video on without the girlfriend part. If you want to know more about that aesthetic, go check out that video. But 80s hard rock, glam rock, that hair metal, all of that, loved a feminine man. We're talking Bon Jovi, Van Halen, Twisted Sister, Vince Neil, Motley Crue, like long hair, luscious lips, red lipstick, rouge, heavy eyeliner, tight leather pants, crop tops, animal print, more heeled booties, lots of spikes, everything black, armbands, fingerless gloves, headbands, red lipstick, mesh spikes, distressing, just like a lot of edgy clothing. I'm going for the 80s rockstar look today. Leather vest and like a jean jacket that I made. And this also blends into goth fashion and alternative fashion, which I think in general tends to toe the line between femme and mask vibes, leaning more on the mask edgier side with sort of a fruity aspect to it. Again, the men were encouraged to wear mesh and see-through and crop tops and tight, and like if you look at Motley Crue and Bon Jovi and Poison and all these glam metal bands, I love glam metal. I want to do a whole video on how in the 80s the most feminine men were like the sex symbols of the time, and I love that. David Lee Roth. And so I think this is also, it's more edgy than 70s hippie, but it still encourages mask presenting people to be a little bit fruity. And I'm saying that in the most like peace, love, and happiness way. And encouraged women to be a little bit more edgy. So I think it really is good. Again, tightness, cropped, leather, spikes. I know leather is a big part of like the queer community as well. So I think the 80s glam rock aesthetic and just like goth and punk and everything that sort of comes out of 80s glam rock also is really good. Emo for and really accepting for like the gender non-conforming community. I feel like those alternative aesthetics do a really good job of being inclusive, and I love like the effeminate men of glam rock, hair metal, all of that, and I think those are great fashion inspirations. Or like even the more mask butch women of the time, like Joan Jett, the Women of Heart, all of that, just like so Debbie Harry, I love just how uniform the like masculine but sexy energy was in 80s glam hair metal. So I think that's a great sort of gender neutral aesthetic to also go for. Moving into the 90s and something kind of similar with the vintage aesthetics, we have grunge. This is another aesthetic that I've done a whole video on, so if you're interested, definitely check that out. But a main tenet of grunge was swapping gendered clothing. Kurt Cobain wore dresses all the time. Women dressed way more masculine. Everything was oversized, distressed, and not male or female. As they say, grunge is the antithesis of fashion. It's an anti-fashion fashion aesthetic. Some tenets of grunge are flannel, distressed jeans, oversized band tees, beat-up sneakers or boots, leather and jean jackets, pale 90s style florals, oversized blazers and suits. And again, this also blends into offshoots of grunge like fairy grunge, whimsy goth, and indie sleaze. So kind of translates into those subgenres. But if you look at like Drew Barrymore, Winona Ryder, they're femme-presenting women with like shorter hair and more masculine presenting clothing, and like, you know, kind of just wearing the same thing as men. The costume designer in Clueless, the movie, said that the reason why she like went so hard in that movie for the costumes is that she was tired of not being able to tell who was a man or who was a woman in dress, because everyone had like long hair and was wearing kind of grungy, oversized flannels and beat up things. I mean, grunge is such an easy aesthetic because it's the antithesis of fashion. Encourages just like wearing whatever you found in the trash, wearing whatever you found in the dumpster, wearing whatever you found at the thrift store. So very easy, very inclusive, and very gender non-conforming in my opinion. Moving into a more contemporary aesthetic, I think the downtown aesthetic or the downtown girl aesthetic really fits the gender non-conforming vibe. It's sort of grunge, and I've done a whole video on the downtown girl, star girl aesthetic, and it's a little bit more contemporary than grunge, a little bit more modern. It's very Gilmore Girls, messy French girl, some grunge and some indie sleaze. it uses a lot of like loose baggy clothing, oversized sweaters and t-shirts, big headphones, star accessories, leather blazers, low and mid-rise boot cut pants, hoodies, baby tees, relaxed fitting pieces, neutral basics, tall leather boots, Converse, Doc Martens, Sambas, New Balances. Again, it's like not very, these fashion aesthetics are not contingent on heavily gendered clothing like skirts, dresses, pink bows, like a coquette or a Regency core aesthetic would be. And so the downtown aesthetic, which is a little bit more contemporary than the previous three aesthetics I've been talking about, I feel like is also, I mean, it's very easy. It's kind of, I mean, if you watch the video on the downtown girl aesthetic, you know that I'm like, is this even an aesthetic? Is this even anything? But because it's sort of nothing, I feel like it's pretty easy for anybody to do. I mean, it's pants and like oversized sweaters and stuff. The next aesthetic that I think is so great for gender fluidity and gender non-conforming people and is very accepting to that community is dark and light academia and everything in between, green academia, all that, all of academia aesthetics. And they've been pretty popular in like the NB community because of its main staples, which are blazers, suits, corduroys, loafers, sweater vests, cardigan sweaters, plaid pants, black turtlenecks, sophisticated accessories. It's a subculture with a heavy emphasis on reading, writing, learning, looking like a traditional academic with a gothic edge, slubby brown cardigans, vintage tweed pants, a worn leather satchel full with a stack of books, dark photos, brooding poetry, and skulls lined up next to candles. Very prep school, very Ivy League, and so it relies more on traditionally masculine clothing of like the Ivy League office boarding school type of look, but I think it's very hot to see women in those sorts of suits, or femme presenting people in those sorts of suits and tweed and vice versa. I think academia is just such an easy aesthetic to toe the line of gender nonconforming or being gender fluid, because you can really mask or femme it up in either way, however you want to do it. And the staples of the aesthetic are very neutral in that way. It's so fun. Like the dark academia aesthetic is so fun. Light academia is so fun. And I know a lot of non-binary creators who really attach themselves to dark and light academia because of that. This one you guys might have not expected, but it's the coastal grandparent aesthetic. I'm gonna say coastal grandparent, or the coastal cowgirl, cowboy aesthetic. I think they're pretty gender neutral because the staples are such classics. It's a lot of white, linen and cotton, denim, cow print, fringe, maxi skirts, crochet tops, linen and muslin fabrics, cowboy boots, clogs, sandals, cowboy hats, turquoise jewelry, oxidized silver, shell jewelry, lots of blue and white, stripes, gingham, lots of ivories, oatmeals, creams, all of that, with maybe some pops of pink. It's very nautical prep, but you kind of tone down the colors, make everything loose and breezy. So again, if you're someone that wears a binder or doesn't want to show a lot of their skin, this is a nice summery aesthetic that is, it doesn't feel like you're purposely covering up or hiding yourself. It feels summery and natural, but it's not like short and tight. And it's very neutral. I mean, white linen pants are for everybody. Button downs are for everybody, obviously. And I think, I don't know, coastal grandmother, coastal granddaughter, I feel like it's very, it seems like it's very one-sided, very like white, rich girl on the coast vibes. But like, can you imagine a mask presenting person in like a nautical blue linen button down, like deep V with some like breezy pants and brown loafers with no socks? That would be hot, okay? That would be hot. That would be hot. I'm just saying, I want more mask presenting people to rock that coastal grandparent aesthetic, because I think it's sexy and I think you would look good in it. So try that out if you haven't. I know it's not something that you would typically think non-binary, gender non-conforming, gender fluid, but I think it would be hot for summer. I'm just saying, check out that coastal cowboy. And I think the cowboy boots make it a little bit fruitier, a little bit more fun, a little bit more gay. You know what I mean? Like, rather than so strict New England prep, having some cowboy boots, I feel like is a nice little like, I'm gay symbol. There you go. A little bit of free feet for you guys. All right, the next aesthetic is the Art Hoe aesthetic. So I actually haven't done a video on this. So far, all the the aesthetics I've talked about, I've done videos on. But the Art Hoe is an aesthetic based around the love of art, connection to nature, painting and flowers, and is symbolized by African American women who love art and nature. It was created by Tumblr user Sensitive Black Person. The aesthetic uses color, but in a sort of Wes Anderson way. It has vintage vibes, lots of overalls, sunflowers. There's lots of thrift stores, Urban Outfitters. It's very like DIY culture around the Art Hoe. You can find a lot of people like painting or drawing or embroidering on their own clothes. You can really, you can thrift it or upcycle clothes you already have to match your aesthetic a little bit more. Some staples of the aesthetic are the Kanken bags, anything associated with art with like artist work on them, high-waisted straight leg jeans, graphic tees, Converse of any colors, art socks, overalls, shirts with thin horizontal stripes, striped meadow shirts, anything mustard yellow, Vans, checkered slip-ons, Doc Martens, Mary Janes, colorful hair clips. So this, I feel like the Art Hoe, even though it's a very, it was started by a black woman and it's like very black woman centric, I also feel like it's very easy to be non-binary in the Art Hoe aesthetic because of the overalls, the straight leg jeans. It's fun, it's colorful, but it's not too girly and it's not too masculine, whatever that means. I like all the colors. I like the freedom of expression in the Art Hoe aesthetic with the artist that you like. And I feel like also it's very Hayley Kiyoko vibes. I feel like the Art Hoe already kind of looks like a lot of non-binary and queer fashion in general, like the short sleeve striped shirts, the like bright yellow, the primary colors. It already feels very queer to me in general, and so this is another aesthetic that I think would be really cute to try out, and that you can sort of soften up like the artsy, just like, I don't know, it's like soft, it's vulnerable, it's fun, but it's a little bit youthful, but it's not too kid-like, which is nice. And again, easy if you want to wear binders or if you don't want to show your body that much. The Art Hoe aesthetic really like allows room for that. This one is a little bit different, but it's clowncore. I haven't done a video on this yet. And the purpose of clowncore is to be over the top and funny. So the idea of mass presenting people in skirts and femme presenting people in zoot suits is inherent and it's encouraged in the aesthetic. This is great if you're more fun and alternative and you want something more colorful. Makeup is encouraged on all ends and it adds a whimsical, frilly detail to the outfits. The clowncore aesthetic surrounds things such as clowns, mimes, jesters. Content from this aesthetic is usually very bright and happy, although some have sort of like horror influences. So if you're more goth punk, you can do that in clowncore. If you're more colorful, bright Art Hoe style, you can do that side of clowncore. Some staples of the aesthetic are colorful shoes, childlike motifs such as rainbows, stars, and balloons, brightly dyed hair or wigs, party or jester hats, plastic accessories, badges, or jewelry with childlike slogans such as "I jump in puddles," heavy clown-like makeup, rainbow stripes, primary colors, overalls or suspenders, circus tights. It feels very drag in a lot of ways. It's like very a la drag, like putting on a whole beat to go outside. It also feels very club kid, like it feels like sort of a more youthful offshoot, more youthful and more lighthearted offshoot of the club kid aesthetic, which is or club kid movement, I should say, community, which is a queer community associated with like ballroom and the 90s underground club scene, which was completely dominated by queer people. So I feel like clowncore is just a more like whimsical, a little bit more youthful, a little bit more fun version of club kid. You're still doing fun makeup, you're still doing crazy outfits and everything, but it's a little bit more fun and soft and maybe a little bit less edgy. And this is something that you can play with like the modesty aspect as well. Like you can do short little bloomers, you could do like big oversized pants, like you can play around with it, which is nice. Alrighty, the second to last aesthetic I think comes to no surprise, it's pirate core. What is more bisexual than Pirates of the Caribbean? Fruity little pirate, hot man in flowy ruffled deep V shirts, hot woman in a pirate hat and leather, everyone's wet all the time. This is a bisexual's dream. It draws inspiration from aesthetics such as adventure core and crowcore, and may include things such as collecting shells and rocks, studying maps and constellations, sea travel, and sketching. It's similar to the hippie aesthetic and glam rock and grunge. It feels very gender bending, having a ton of overlap in what is men or women's clothing. I think pirate core, you can really mix like corset with leather, with boots, with a flowy top, and it still makes sense. Like, it's good to mix and match things. There's a good range of sluttiness you can play with, which is also always fun. Some staples of the pirate core aesthetic are flowing maxi dresses, corsets or corset belts, ruffles, breathable layers, oversized blouses, neutral colors of blues, browns, reds, greens, ivory, tight or baggy pants, flannels, lace, leather jackets, oversized blazer, fingerless gloves, heeled boots and sandals, square belts. Accessories can vary, but are usually scarves, beads, chains, handmade jewelry. And usually these will be brighter or metallic in the accessories. And I think like the fantasy aesthetics tend to be very, very queer friendly, very NB friendly, and pirate core especially. I feel like I saw a lot of non-binary and gender fluid creators in the pirate core aesthetic. So if you're looking for that community, it's definitely out there on TikTok. But again, if you look at like Elizabeth Swann or Captain Jack Sparrow, you know, from Pirates of the Caribbean, there is a lot of crossover in what they're wearing, and I think like there is something kind of fruity about pirates in a lot of ways, like how we see pirates, you know, the earrings, the eyeliner, etc. So I think it's a good way to play around. And again, you can wear loose layers with it if you need to cover up more, or again, if you're wearing a binder or something like that, recovering from surgery. Or you could really like slut it up with the corsets and other things. So you can really play around with it. You can play around with the mask and the femme aspects of the clothing, like leather boots, pirate hat, like swords with long flowing skirt. Like, you know, you can really play around with it and it makes sense in the aesthetic, which I really like. I love pirate core. I think it's a very sexy aesthetic. I think it's really hot, and I think it's so good for everybody. And the last one, I think this comes as no surprise. It's the Call Me By Your Name aesthetic, the Sufjan Stevens summer aesthetic. I did a whole video on this last year. This is a gay movie based on a gay book, so obviously I had to put it in here. This is one of the few aesthetics that I talk about that rely more on men's clothing than women's. It has nice, juicy colors with some 80s prep influence. It's very summery and breezy. It kind of has surfer skater vibes as well. It's a more exposed aesthetics, especially with like the short shorts being such a big part of it. Some staples of the Call Me By Your Name aesthetic are short sleeve button-ups, overalls, using boxers as shorts, Bermuda shorts or loose shorts. Usually femme presenting people tend to do the Bermuda shorts in the Call Me By Your Name aesthetic, and mass presenting people usually do the short shorts, but obviously you can flip-flop that. Lots of bold prints and colors in jewel and earth tones, late 80s, early 90s prints, like those sorts of zigzaggy patterns and stuff. Lots of loose linens, billowy shirts and dresses, brown sandals, beat up sneakers. Very youthful, very summery. Definitely go check out my video, and if you haven't seen the movie Call Me By Your Name, very, very sweet and aesthetically pleasing. Kind of problematic, but an aesthetically pleasing film nonetheless, and the outfits are really cool. And this, similar to the Art Hoe aesthetic, very much reminds me of like Hayley Kiyoko style, very much reminds me of like sort of the general queer aesthetic of like short sleeve button downs, short shorts, bright colors. It just reminds me of a lot of like the stereotypical NB queer, maybe a little bit butch fashion of like the bright short sleeve button downs. So I had to put this one in there as well because I feel like it's a great aesthetic for anyone who wants to try it out. And with that, those are the 10 aesthetics that I want to talk about today. And once again, I cannot stress this enough. All aesthetics are for all people, because clothing is for all people, because clothing does not have genitals, so you cannot put clothing on one sex or the other. However, I can empathize with maybe a lot of fashion aesthetics being so heavily catered towards women and femme presenting people that it feels like you can't participate in this fun dress-up aspect of niche fashion aesthetics. And I am here to say that you absolutely can participate, and you should participate in these fun niche fashion aesthetics, because it is fun to play dress up as an adult. And I hope these gave you some good creative ideas. If you're someone that wants to be more adventurous with your fashion but are maybe a little bit scared or intimidated, or in like a safe situation at home or something, these aesthetics allow you to play and fantasize and, you know, toe the line of gender neutrality without necessarily like putting your safety at risk, I hope. any of these aesthetics really encourage gender bending, gender fluidity, mask wearing femme clothing, femme wearing mask clothing, and vice versa, and just having that freedom to be subversive, to be countercultural, to be fun and different, and again, just have fun in fashion. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and let me know what other fashion aesthetics, if you have any suggestions for non-binary folks down in the comments. Let them know what fashion aesthetics you think would be also really good for gender fluidity and non-binary people, or communities that are very accepting for those people. TikTok is a really good place for that as well. I think the niche fashion community is pretty good at that in general, especially the aesthetics that I talked about here. I feel like they're really open, and I tried to make sure that I had aesthetics that had communities that were very open to trans, gender non-conforming people as well. So definitely make sure to subscribe to my channel because I post videos every Thursday, and follow me on TikTok and Instagram because I post content there almost every single day. And with that, have a happy day. Bye!